You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. My name is Clark, and with me co-hosting is Hyung and John. This is episode 22, and right off the top, I wanted to get your guys' quick thoughts on the recent news that Upper Deck has signed a licensing deal with the NHL and the NHLPA. So first, are you guys surprised, especially with the prevailing thought these days that Fanatics was just going to acquire those licenses sooner or later? So yeah, your first thoughts.
John, you could go.
Yeah, I was completely shocked. I assumed 100% Fanatics was going to take that license away. I didn't, if Topps and Panini didn't have the power to thwart away the monster that is Fanatics, I thought Upper Deck had absolutely no chance. I'm pretty surprised. I don't know how the agreement worked out, whether they really upped the ante or is it because of loyalty. We don't know the details, but good on Upper Deck. But from just from an initial thoughts, we all have the love for Upper Deck from back in the nostalgia days back when we were kids. But,
for sure,
Upper Deck as of late in the last, 15, 20 years, some can argue, kind of maybe a bit of a boring product. They didn't really maybe push the envelope as some of these other brands really went all out in going to Chrome style cards and like National Treasures, like these big breaks. These big products. So yeah, from a collector fan perspective, I was kind of secretly looking forward to a new hockey Fanatics big time product. So we'll see. I'm hoping that this sort of wakes Upper Deck up and they start to produce some banging products.
Mm-hmm. What if it's not a bad move by Fanatics, letting Upper Deck kind of broker the deal, the contract first before. Because I think
before purchasing them or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, it might be a win-win for Upper Deck, as well as might be a better deal in the long run for Fanatics, right?
Right.
I mean, just from that perspective, right? Just playing devil's advocate.
It's possible. Hey, it's possible. I'm not gonna
because I still think Fanatics is gonna buy up everybody. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Right.
So I mean, it could be right now. Maybe they're not that interested in hockey, or maybe they are. And you know what? It's maybe down the line,
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a real possibility, yeah.
I have a feeling more than the hockey, they're just really interested in the Jordan and LeBron lifetime autos.
Right. But I don't really see Jordan signing too many autos because it's like the exclusive deal, right? So
yeah.
But maybe that's another reason why Fanatics is in too, right? Or it would be actually what's called desirable by Fanatics, right? You get kind of like that exclusivity.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting how it plays out, but let's just assume that Upper Deck has no plans right now to sell. I like the news because I might have shared in one of the previous episodes. I love the SP Authentic Future Watch cards. Those are classic autographed rookie cards for any hockey card collectors. So I'm glad that will stay. And the cup, of course, the high end Upper Deck product is always a good chase. But having said that, if Fanatics did acquire Upper Deck, there's no reason for Fanatics to get rid of those. They could just easily continue that product too, right?
I think from a hobby perspective, everybody likes it. So I think just when I was digging in through the comments and everybody's the same way, it's like they're happy overall, that Upper Deck's still on board with hockey, and we'll see in the next few years and see, hopefully Upper Deck we talk about it all the time, gets a little more fun in their rips, a little more creative,
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. We'll keep an eye out on that development, but it might be years in the making. So
yeah.
Okay, then let's just move on to hobby headlines. So today, I want to talk about which players are you starting to worry about? And maybe we can rate our panic level from a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, 1 being not worried at all, to 10 being where's the panic button? All right. So I think that'll be fun to rate some of these players that we have in mind. But the reason I bring this topic up is really the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you've been following football, who would have predicted they would be 3-4 after 7 games? Mm-hmm. And their last game was dismal. They lost 24-3 against the Titans. Like, I can't even remember the last game Mahomes didn't throw a touchdown. Like, it's pretty incredible.
Right.
What how far the Chiefs have fallen this season. And they're only a game under 500, but still, when you're expected to go to the Super Bowl year after year, it's an interesting development.
Yeah.
So speaking of Mahomes, let's start there. Are you worried about Patrick Mahomes? Are you looking to sell if you got some of his cards? What's your general panic level? 1 to 10.
For me, it's probably about a 5. I'm not too panicked by it. I think a lot of people who've invested a lot of money at the peak are kind of more in the panic of deciding. I think people who've invested in Mahomes, long term, I think this is just kind of like you look at every successful quarterback, and I don't think you'll find too many successful quarterbacks like Mahomes along in the career, right? So he's going to go through failure. We can't expect him to produce at the rate he's been producing. It's really unrealistic if you think about it. And when you look at the bigger picture, you're going to say, in my opinion, that 2021, 2022 season was the dip, right? It was a good buying time, and
Sure.
And you never know. The season's still young. But I think a lot of people are panicking a bit. But I also think that Mahomes was way inflated. Like, his Hall of Fame career was almost baked into that price, right? So I think what you're seeing more so is that correction. And, as supply and demand is going to be always the factor in terms of value, I think the people that truly believe in Mahomes, which is like any other GOAT superstar like Acuna, the Tom Brady's, I don't think people are going to give up necessarily on them that quick. I think the people that are kind of sort of bought in at the peak, I think those are the ones that are spreading the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But yeah, that's I think long term, I'm not too worried. If you're a day trader, yeah, you're probably a little worried, but I wouldn't be dropping that much money on a short term Mahomes move anyways, right? So
yeah, Hyung, that's a good point, man. I think when you mentioned like Hall of Fame being baked in, I think that's really accurate, because when you look at Mahomes prices, I'm gonna just say right now, like, for me personally, I'm a 1. I'm not worried at all. But for those that got into Mahomes thinking they were gonna quick flip, or hopefully, sell into a high this season or at the end of the Super Bowl, or it still could happen. But for them, I think you'd be a bit worried, because you're seeing the correction in that Hall of Fame being baked in. So for the prices to go back up to that Hall of Fame level, I think it's going to take a bit of work to get back there. So it probably is a bit concerning to quick flippers, but long term, I'm on Mahomes long term. I don't think there's anything to worry about. For somebody like me, I've got my eyes open, man. Like, in the next couple of weeks, if the Chiefs continue to do bad and they're out of the playoff picture, like, you could see, Mahomes prices go to like all-time lows for the past 12 to 18 months. And this is where you keep your eyes open, man. This is when you can get into the Mahomes that you always dreamed of. Some people have never been able to afford a Mahomes, and maybe you can get into something like an Optic PSA 10. So I for myself, not worried. I've got my eyes open to try and buy.
Okay. I think we're all in similar boats. My panic level is probably a 2. Like, I wasn't expecting the Chiefs to do this poorly. So that's why it's a 2 instead of a 1. But I'm also in long term for Mahomes. For me, the way I see it is that the Chiefs defense is horrendous, right? And that's the source of most of their troubles. And all they have to do is just get better D, like just start to reconstruct their team to protect Mahomes a little bit better, and then Mahomes can continue to do his thing. It's not really about his talent level. Why the Chiefs are 3-4. So I'm a believer in Mahomes, and I agree with you guys 100% that if you're looking to buy Mahomes, yeah, I would keep a watch on a lot of these Mahomes rookie cards. Like, I would secretly almost be rooting for the Chiefs to just tank their season this year, you know, and then see that dip and then get in as quickly as possible. But you know what human nature is. We always talk about this, right? Like once it comes to a point where the Chiefs are 3-13, 14, a lot of guys will start to question whether they want Mahomes. You know, like it's like it's like investing in stocks that you supposedly believed in until they start tanking, and then you don't see it as a buying opportunity. You know, you just get scared. So we'll see how people react to this, but I'm in on Mahomes all the way.
You know what? There's eerily similar, I guess, parallels as Luka last year. You know, where, you know, his prices were astronomical. I remember silvers were going for over like 10K at one point. And obviously they've come down. They went as low as 5K. They retracted 50%. But that's the type of volatility you're going to get, is like people were expecting Luka prices to sustain itself when, you know, there's 17,000 PSA, you know, 10 base out there. And when Luka doesn't perform, for instance, you know, when, you know, Dallas is disappointing or, you know, he ends up, you know, having a 13-point game, people on the boards are like, who's selling Luka? You know, it's like, it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, if you believed in Luka long term and what he could do, it's the same kind of situation as Mahomes, where, and you're right. It's like, now is the time where you have to monitor pricing on certain cards and start targeting when you think it's all time low or when it's the dip. That's when you go in, right? So just, I guess, not too early, because I think people think. I think the prices will take effect. It'll take some time, right? You won't see it for another probably 2-3 months, I think, because I think people are still holding it. If he does kind of falter, then that's when you kind of will see the after effects. You didn't really see Acuna's price go down until kind of like a couple months after that ACL blow, right? So,
for sure. Okay. So on this theme of players we might or might not be worried about, whether it's their poor performance or whether it's their team's poor performance or whether it's injuries, are there any other players, any sport, that come to your mind?
For me, it's kind of the opposite. I think there's guys that are still kind of undervalued, and I think a guy that. Like I just looked at Carmelo Anthony's kind of like cards, and just seeing where prices are with you know, a future Hall of Famer, I guess. I know that's probably debatable, because I know he's not the most well liked player, but like pricing for Carmelo doesn't make sense. I think he's so cheap, for instance, right? So for me, yeah, it's kind of like, I guess, the opposite of what you're saying, tanking. Maybe this is the dip, right, where people don't realize, you know, the talent level that, you know, that he put forth, and, you know, I think he's like maybe 16th in all-time scoring, right? So it's like you realize these things and look at it in the long-term picture and realize that there's so many imbalances, right? And the factor is basically kind of how. You know, how important they are or how relevant they are in today's society. And that's what kind of like the prices are into play right now. So, I think he's a good buy, in my opinion. So I just want to throw that out there.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I think Carmelo he's been a pretty polarizing player over the course of his career. He's not very liked for many reasons, mostly because play style, ball hog, whatever you name it, just doesn't play to the style of like what people would say, quote unquote, a winner. But Hyung makes a good point. Like, his cards are low. I think he's absolutely bang on about there being some opportunity here, because what you see in a lot of these pros and I think Carmelo should go in the Hall of Fame personally. But when these guys are in their swan song, when they're at the end of their careers, that perception and image of them starts to turn when they're walking off the court in their final games. And it's, like, I think him as a Laker and him ending his career maybe this year or next, we're going to start to see like that positive image of Carmelo, like all-time great, one of the all-time scorers, and everything's going to be positive. He's going to be smiling, joking around with LeBron. Like, I think we're going to see that positive image start to come into play. So I think he's right. Hyung's right about Carmelo's values. Like, there's an opportunity here for it to go up big time. Me personally, I think that's a great play. It's a good one.
Nice.
Yeah.
John, you have a player in mind?
Yeah, I can't remember if it was the last episode or the episode before, but we mentioned MPJ.
Okay.
I would say like he's gotten off to a very rocky start. I think he's like, like last game he was like 10 points, 4 rebounds, and the game before it was very similar numbers, and the game before that was very similar.
Right.
I think people who are expecting quick breakout or monster numbers, you're not seeing it right now, and maybe that might be stalling MPJ's cards. So I think he's a good candidate for doubling down. Like we mentioned before, and we recommended. I like MPJ still as a buy because his cards haven't really moved big time. And then I would double, like I'm very, very closely, and perhaps I'm biased, but I'm very closely looking at Tatis. Like his cards just continue to go downwards, and I'm looking at it very closely. I don't know why. I think he's probably, I don't know when the announcement's going to be made, but he's going to be announced probably as the MVP, NL MVP.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why his cards are going down, and it's not just base. Like it'd be one thing if the base was going down because pop numbers are at 17,000, what yada 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 about base. But other cards, like big cards, are going down. Like this week, I was trying to target the PSA 10 foil board, and that's a card that normally goes for about $4,000. And on PWCC auctions, that's another story in itself. I had a gong show trying to like bid on things, but it ended up selling for 2,200.
Yeah,
Right?
that's probably
Wow.
Johnny. That's probably what you're mentioning about how like people couldn't log on, because I was reading that on the
Oh, were they
forum
having-
as well. I don't know if they were having problems, but everybody was saying what happened here. Like, can
Right.
I
Yeah.
like I wish I was bidding on this because I would have bought that for 2,200.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that might be a PWCC like problem that
Right.
happened, or if that was like a Tatis like kind of like a market, like, or it was just a deal, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, you're absolutely right. Tatis is a buy as well, I think. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
So, in terms of rank, let's start with MPJ. In terms of panic level, 1 to 10, what would you say?
Oh, what am I panicking about MPJ? No, absolutely not.
Like,
in terms of
on a scale of 1 to 10.
okay, I can't put him as a 1 because Mahomes is a 1, and he's gonna be like on
Right.
the stratosphere's Hall of Fame. So I'll put MPJ at 3.
Okay.
Good
Yeah.
God, what scale are we using here? Because for me, it's like 5 out of 10 is like fail, like 50% kind of like, right? So it's like, I'm not saying it's like, but you guys are throwing 1s and 3s, so I gotta see what ruler you guys are using.
Yeah.
Listen, with those 1s and 3s, that just means we're just super confident, that we're not worried about that player.
Okay. So 5, I'm not worried, but there's still risk,
Okay,
right?
5, sure.
Yeah,
I feel like 5's on the fence.
Okay. So that like just so we're on the same page here.
Okay. Okay. How about you, Hyung? How would you rank MPJ?
See, I really like his upside. And he's still young. He's dealt with a lot of injuries, and we've said it all the time. It's like, long term, I still believe in his talent, and
Yeah.
I'm not too worried, like John says. But if you're comparing it to like the Mahomes, he's obviously a higher risk. He has to establish his career, so I'm gonna probably say about a 6 to 7
Okay.
on the risk scale. But again, that's using my ruler.
Right. No, I get it.
Yeah.
I would say a 5. Like, I've always been concerned about his health issues even before his rocky start. So for me, it didn't really move the needle either way, because I agree it's too early to make a verdict on MPJ's career.
Yeah.
And like you guys said, it's he's a young guy too. So for me, his health was always an issue, underlying issue.
Right.
But definitely still has the upside. So I'm still kind of on the fence with MPJ. But that's a good pick. And I guess with Tatis, I think we're all on board. Like, we're not worried about Tatis at all, right? At this point?
No.
Not at all. Tatis,
Double down, baby. Double down.
Yeah, I mean,
Double down.
we got to remember, it's like, just follow the professional teams, what they do. You think San Diego would invest, $300+ million if they thought he was going to be a flop, I would rather trust their professional scouts and kind of like where the money kind of goes and, roll the dice on that. So
That's true.
to me, like, yeah, absolutely. Like we always talk about low numbered cards.
Right.
This is the off season deals we're talking about, right? These are the dips that we look. But remember, when we chart annual year to year, all these guys we talked about, I guarantee you, it's still on a upward trend. From 2018, or 2019, as far as the rookie goes, right? So,
yeah. You know what, Hyung, I would agree with you almost 100%, but I would say I don't trust who the Yankees pay $300 million to. They throw money at anyone. So
absolutely, but yeah, never trust the Yankee, anyways, right?
I got an issue. I actually have a Yankee on my concern list.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm actually going against one of your recommendations not too long ago, and I'm putting Aaron Judge on the concern list.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
And the reason I say that is, I think everybody puts so much emphasis on the quote unquote Yankee market and how big it is and how much people are buying in New York. I feel like that marketing and that image is a little overinflated. I don't think outside of New York, many people, if at all, like the Yankees or follow Yankee players or have Yankee players as their favorites. Like, I think people are outside of New York. I think people are buying Yankee cards because of the quote unquote Yankee market. Like, that's the only reason why they're buying it. Like, I personally I'm not buying, Stanton or Aaron Judge. So, like if you look at Yankees that have gone up in value or all time, like we're talking like all time consummate pros like Jeter, Mariano Rivera, and so forth, and some of the older guys. Reggie Jackson is one of the like not so super old, but like we're talking all time, right? Like that's when people are like, oh yeah, I really like. It's beyond just like a Yankee market. But in terms of that, yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like this Yankee market is a thing, and I'm not so sold on it, man. Like I don't know where Judge's cards are gonna go. I would be concerned that he may not go down as an all time, and like if there ever is an influx, like a spike in his value, and you're holding on to Judge right now, I'd be one to be like, you know what, when that spike comes, like you should sell.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fair points.
Yeah, I think John, to mention, like I think the difference, like obviously Yankees have, like the unlimited budget, and they go through a lot of players. Like Ichiro played on the Yankees, but he like, what I mean, they come and go, right? All these guys, and I think the Yankees, that they have such a rich tradition that it's those lifer Yankees that kind of like the Jeters, the Mantles, all the Yankees that kind of like have made an impact and dent in kind of society. But then you got the New York players that kind of come and go. And I feel like Aaron Judge is flirting with that kind of like that line, whether he's going to be that lifer, right? So I still think he could mash. I think I want to, like, if he puts up like 50+ home run seasons, I think there's going to be a absolute spark in prices, right?
Boy.
So it's interesting because he's still at the age where I think from a baseball standpoint, you're starting to peak, or you're starting to play your best baseball, or you're mature enough where you're laying off certain pitches, especially as a hitter, right? So it's going to be interesting with Judge. I think based on his values, I think there's still a lot of opportunity based on his upside. But it could go both ways, because Judge has always been interesting in the hobby, kind of like Cody Bellinger. You know,
Right.
like where it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I remember Bellinger had that unreal season, 47 home runs. He won MVP. He was just unreal for the Dodgers. And even then, his card prices, you know, doing that as a 21-year-old, his card prices kind of just went sideways for the longest time. And then, you know, and it's almost going back to those expectations. You start to expect, you know, him to perform that every time, and then all of a sudden these players struggle a bit and deal with a little adversity and failure. You know, prices start tanking, right? So it's kind of like similar in terms of that. So are you guys worried about Cody?
No, that's, you know what,
Speaking of-
it's funny you say that, because I want to bring up Cody later, but yeah, we could talk about it now. Like, John, you said you are?
Oh yeah. Well, I think we talked about Cody before. I think I had him on one of my hot takes about like being out of
I
the league
remember.
or something. I'm 100% concerned. I think, you know, he came back to life a bit in this playoffs. You know, the great, you're batting you know, a $110 for the season, but you come up clutch in the playoffs. So I think he salvaged a lot of his, you know, perception and market value. But I'm still concerned, man. I didn't like the numbers that he's been batting the last couple of years. So yeah, I wouldn't be on him, and I don't know what to think of. I don't know what to think of him for the future.
Yeah. I mean, when we talked about him during that Hot Takes edition a few weeks back, I was pretty, like, my panic level was probably a 3 or 4.
Right.
Since then, it's probably around a 7. Like, it's definitely, he's one of those guys I'm starting to really worry about. Like, I don't know which Cody we're gonna get in the next season. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's a flip of a coin. Like, is his health gonna be always a factor with him moving forward?
Right.
Yeah. So, like, I thought it was a good buying opportunity a few months ago, but now, yeah, I think there's better ways to spend your money. So, and with Judge, I'm still a believer. Like, Hyung's made some of the points, but I think he is one of those guys in the Yankees organization that they love to market. Like,
Right.
he's a friendly guy, even off the field. You know,
Right.
like, he does so many charitable things, and I still believe he can mash too. Like, the only thing I'm worried about is his violent swing. You know, those guys, they got to watch their oblique. You know, if they miss a ball, you
Oh,
know,
yeah. They blow their
strike
neck
out.
muscles.
It looks
Yeah,
like he's got
like-
plenty of neck muscles, so I don't think I'd be too concerned.
Yeah, he has a few of those.
But yeah, I'm still a believer in Judge. So for me, the panic level is still around like a 3,
Yeah.
4. But it's still low. But no, it's a fair point that you brought up.
Yeah, it might be unfair to use Judge. I think the bigger picture point I was trying to make is this whole perception of like investing in the Yankee market, or like really going in on
Right.
guys because the Yankee market is so huge.
Yeah.
And you know, there's all that hype about like Volpe and Jason Dominguez and all those kind of kids, and you know, like Glaber, when he was out, he was like just
Yeah, there you
torching the hobby on fire, right?
Yeah.
So, and Yankees, like New Yorkers are, you know, they're harsh, man. It's like Philly, you know, Toronto fans
Right.
with their hockey, Montreal fans with their hockey. Like, you don't perform, like you're gonna really feel it, like mentally, right? Like you're gonna get crushed as a player. So, yeah, I never downplay that either. Like, it must be tough
For
when
sure.
when times are tough for Aaron Judge. He's reading it in the papers, blah blah blah, this and that, and yeah, something to think about.
For sure. Well, going back to Bellinger, how about his teammate Mookie Betts? I want to throw out a couple more players before ending this segment. I want to throw out Mookie Betts because, you know, I think a lot of people were expecting more of Mookie Betts in the playoffs, and he performed okay. Like, it wasn't bad, but when you performed at the level Mookie's performed in previous seasons, especially with the Bo Sox, you know, you're expecting a lot more from Mookie, right? So
Mookie Betts is an absolute buy, in my opinion. It is no question. Like, that guy is so underrated. I think, and for me, like, I've seen his prices so cheap, and then I've seen them so high. You know, when he got traded to the Dodgers and they won the World Series, his prices were skyrocketing. And then they kind of tanked this year because he had kind of like, I guess, I wouldn't See, that's the thing. It's like it's not even a subpar season, right? Like it's just.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good, but he just didn't. He wasn't lights out. We'll say, right? He didn't hit, his 300 or 290 with 30 plus and 100 plus, right? So, but for me, Mookie is a buy because I just see how cheap his prices have gone, and there's some sneaky, especially his Bowman Chrome autos. I think based on comparables to other type of, I guess, Hall of Fame caliber players, I think he's a good opportunity in this offseason. And my panic level for him is like literally, I'd say like a 2. And that's really low. That's like using my
there you go.
Yeah.
Using anyone's ruler, we know that's not panicking at all. How about you, Johnny?
Yeah, Mookie's sort of in that dead space where hobbyists have took all their money into the hype and are buying up all the Tatises and Acuñas. And similar situation, like if you think of basketball, like players like Dame Lillard and, these guys are sort of like toiling. They're past the hype and people are kind of waiting to see them win championships and stuff. And I think Mookie's right in that spot. And he's on his way, probably on his way to the Hall of Fame. And I'm with you guys. Like I'm a buy on Mookie. I think it's just unfortunate they're just in that lull spot of, like the supply and demand, right? Like there's not super, super demand, but I think once Mookie starts to like get closer to the end of his career and a number starts shaping up and then people start realizing, hey, we might be watching a legend here. I think that's when it's going to start picking back up big time. I think of, for me personally, I think of Nolan Arenado. Like he's kind of in that similar boat. Obviously bigger eyes on Mookie because he's played bigger in more recent years and he's on LA. But yeah, I feel like somebody like Nolan Arenado would be sort of in that same space.
For sure.
Yeah, I like that comp. Yeah, for me, this is gonna be a quick one. Mookie Betts, like my panic level's around a 2 as well. Like I've seen his cards start to dip a little bit now, and I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if it dips even further in the offseason as we get deeper into the offseason. And when if that's the case, I'm buying more Mookie.
Right.
Like I am ready to load out Mookie for the next season because
yes. See, now you get the volatility, right? I like the volatility. This is what you want on the superstar. You want the volatility of the highs and lows, and you get in on the lows, and then you'll have a fun spring training because they didn't have one single at bat since that off season. And you could literally make money, which is crazy. Right. And usually at spring training, it's like everybody gets so excited, right? Like prices automatically, double.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. That's a lot of baseball. Let me shift gears to basketball. I want to bring up Russell Westbrook. Like there was a lot of talk about the Lakers with the starting lineup and how Westbrook might contribute, but kind of like MPJ, rocky start. Like he had a really poor game 1. And I think if you saw one of the press conference, LeBron was even telling Westbrook to, just take it easy. It's just one game, it may be getting into his head, but I don't know. Is this the beginning of the end of his career, like a slow decline? Or do you think it's just really one game, like LeBron says, and we could expect Westbrook to be a key contributor to the Lakers? What's your panic level on Westbrook?
For me, it's pretty low as well. I think he's done enough in his career to kind of solidify. I think he has like we're talking 9 All-Star appearances, which is ridiculous, and he's led the league in scoring twice in his career. And I think my panic's fairly low because even before I thought Russell Westbrook gets so much hate. And it's the same situation as kind of like that Carmelo where, people use that to kind of like dismiss what he's done on the court. Right. And I think when it's all said and done, he's shaped up a pretty nice career, 13 seasons in, and now with LA and, maybe it is the kind of like the start of his kind of like downfall. But I mean, if he puts in a few more seasons in, I think playing a 15 plus career season is pretty unbelievable, right? So my panic level is pretty low. I said he was a buy in the first place, so I'm going to say like a 3 for Westbrook, to be honest, and I'm a buy on him anyways.
Okay.
I don't know about panic level because I think Westbrook is on the trajectory of getting into the Hall of Fame. So I think long term he's fine. But if you're, like anyone who's really getting to Westbrook now is trying to take advantage of card prices and whatnot, in terms of like a investor, like short term perspective, I would be panicking. Like I'd probably put it at a 7. He saw, like, for me, everything I've watched in Westbrook, he's elite when there's ball to go around. When there's not enough ball to go around, and we've seen it in the past, when he's in that role player position, he can't be his full self. And I think when he just relies on taking jump shots here and there, like, that's not the game that he's designed for. He's designed to get the rebound, full court press, like he goes all over the place, high energy, like that's his game. So I don't think he's going to be able to play that game in Lakerland. So I would be, like whatever spike we saw in Westbrook, his career had a huge resurgence last year, right? So whatever hype is left of that, I would be, if you're in a short-term investment world, I would be selling right now. Yeah. And I said it last week, like I think the Lakers, personally, I think they're very overrated. I don't think Westbrook is the answer. We'll see what happens for the rest of the year, but it's still a long season. Yeah. Yep. For me, I think I'd be selling Westbrook. But, long term, if you're holding and you think, 3-4 years from now when his career is done, he's going to head to Hall of Fame, I think he's a solid one. But for now, yeah, I'm selling.
Okay. I mean, Lakers are overrated. You think so?
I think so.
Yeah. If Westbrook doesn't work out, they have AD. If AD doesn't work out, they have Carmelo. If Carmelo doesn't work out, they got LeBron.
They got too many. I love AD. They got too many geezers, man.
That's true. They're getting up there in age. But
yeah.
You know what? I agree with you in terms of short-term investment. Like, I was hoping for the best with Westbrook, and I was hoping that he would just come out of the gates and show me something.
Right.
And even in the first 3 games, and the Lakers looks like they need a little bit more time to gel together. But I think what I saw in him with Washington, he can lift up the Wizards to be a better team. And I agree. I don't think he's a role player. Like, he's a triple-double machine when he could play with the ball most of the game. Yeah. And I don't think he's going to get that in LA. But yeah, like you guys, long-term, it's more of a long-term investment. If you get it cheap, just hold on to it. People will see all those triple doubles like I was just talking about, and just the career stats that he's put up is pretty impressive. But if you're looking for a bump in terms of him being an MVP caliber type player, I don't think you're going to see it anytime soon.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think for this segment, I guess it's always good to check in on certain players that there's always been a lot of hype on. And then, reality always hits for some of these players in season. And it's always good to gauge where our panic level is if we're selling or buying. But looks like for most of these guys, we still have patience, except for Bellinger. Okay. Let's move on to our next segment. It's kind of related to what we're talking about, but and we did this a couple of times before. It's called Dead Wrong. And for first-time listeners, it's just a way to keep ourselves accountable. But this is where we talk about some of our dead wrong moves or decisions we've made in the hobby. It could be a player we invested in that didn't work out at all, or even the ones we passed on and they did extremely well. It could be anything hobby-related. So who wants to go first and share one of their dead wrong moves in the hobby?
I'll shoot at it.
Okay.
Well, can I say Mitch Marner? Just in a span of a couple of weeks.
That's quick.
No, I still believe in Mitch Marner. He's just going through a rough patch here. But my dead wrong, actually, it's going to be more not a card or player related. It's going to be kind of like a category, which is F1. And for me, I grew up from the hood. Okay. F1 was never a sport. Like, to me, I grew up like you play basketball, you play street hockey, you play whatever, tag or whatever, cops and robbers. You don't watch F1. You don't dream that you're going to be a F1. So I totally dismiss, the whole F1 kind of world, because for me, it's my like ideologies of growing up, of how I grew up, right? So when F1 originally came in, I didn't realize how big it was. And me being all about, marketing and business, it's like you look at the sponsorships, such as like Rolex, all these high end sponsorships, and you look into it more and more and see how big the logistics and operations to run one of these cars, and then the payouts, like Lewis Hamilton, for instance. And then you look at card prices like a Lewis Hamilton Sapphire at like $2,000. It was even higher at one point. So it's like, for me, I totally dismiss that whole industry. And I still think, obviously, there's a lot of, especially with that whole Netflix show as well. I think you realize how big and kind of like where the money is, kind of, right? So it's a kind of like a beauty of both worlds, where the industry itself is absolutely massive and the money is there. So for me, I personally totally kind of laughed it off when it came out, and I had opportunities to buy really early, right? So yeah, that's, for me, that's my dead wrong. I was completely, and maybe it's just a trend, right? We look back and the F1 dies down, but I don't see it dying down, to be honest. Based on kind of like Lewis Hamilton prices, man, that guy is the GOAT, right? So
for sure, that's a good one, because I'm in the same boat as you, man. I never grew up watching F1, NASCAR, any of those car race type events, and totally hear you. But you know what? Like, I think Netflix plays a role in it too. Like, the spotlight on the sport now plays a role in it. Like, I just saw a Schumacher documentary. I don't know if you saw it on Netflix, but But like, I didn't know anything about the sport. I didn't even really know anything about Schumacher, except that he's a big name in the sport. But after seeing that, and after seeing like the fans in that sport, like, it's a whole new world that we just were blind to, but it existed. You know what I mean? So yeah, totally agree.
Good one, man. I've talked a lot on this podcast about ratios, and some people like to call them multipliers. And we when we explain ratios, and when we talk about some of our how we got into certain steals and certain good cards using ratios, we sound like we're a bunch of geniuses, but far from the case. So I'm going to actually use a dead wrong of where I was completely wrong with the ratio. Okay. So back, I think about 12 months ago, when cards were popping off, and I think Luka Prisms were around 1,200, I think, US, 12 to 1,500. I don't remember the exact numbers, but during that time, Optic, and we all know Optic at one point was number 2 in terms of like branding, but generally Optic was sort of trading at around 80% of Prism. And during this time, Optic started to kind of go down as a brand. All these YouTubers were talking about how Select is underrated, and I love Select, blah blah blah, and Select started to make a surge. And Optic started to really come down. Like, Luka cards weren't really coming down, but Optic was coming down. And it came all the way down to 50%. So at the time, the Luka Optic was trading for like 650, 700, while the Prism was in sort of like that 12 to 1500. It was at 50%. So in my mind, I was like, man, this is, I don't think it's going to stay here. I think this ratio is going to hold up. And I think Optic is, I don't know what's going on here. People are sleeping on it all of a sudden. So I went in on, I doubled up on two Lukas at that point. And I was like, what, using my ratios, I think I'm going to win here. And fast forward to today, 12 months later, and Optic is still at 50%. Luckily it's Luka, and I have a chance, long term. I like to hold the cards long term, but it's a good lesson on, like, you're not, just because a ratio is a ratio, that doesn't mean it's bulletproof. It doesn't mean that's the fast, hard rule. Like, the hobby can flip on you at any point. I think we know supply very well. We know pop counts very well, but predicting demand, whether demand is going to keep up on something, whether it's going to be there or not, I think that's a game that's really tough to predict. And another example is, like, when you look at, for the longest time, the fast hard rule was Prism base versus silver is 5x. That's kind of like the standard people have been using. But if you look at the numbers right now, prism base, like if you use Luka as an example, it's like 7, almost 8x. I think it's hit 8x. So silver versus base. So that's another example. I think if people went hard at, okay, there's something off here. Why is it 7x? Silver seems to be pretty expensive. I'm going to load up on base. You might be holding the bag here, right? So I think that's a lesson on, there's a good learning lesson for me, thinking, like getting a bit overconfident about ratios and the hobby or the demand kind of flipping and changing on you.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, people get really comfortable with ratios once they're into the hobby,
Right.
but there's so many other factors involved. You quickly learn that truth as well. 100%. All right, my dead wrong is more specific. It's when I could have bought a Ja Morant light blue. I was eyeing a light blue select prism. It might have been concourse for like under 1,000, and I thought that was a lot. And then, of course, he scores 40 last game.
He's going off, man.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm like, I might have just missed the boat on Ja now. Like, I might have to, if I want to get in, I have to buy it today because I think he's off to the moon. Like, we talk about players that has slow starts. Ja's like off to a hot start. You know? So I hate that when that happens. But yeah, there's so many instances I've shared before in previous Did Wrong segments. Cars that I bought. Manuel Margot or like the players that haven't turned out, but sometimes the losses are in the plays that you didn't make,
Right.
So that's just I guess my main point. Some players you just believe in, and don't get too cute with the dollars, like if it's like
right.
$50 to $100 more than I want to pay, if you let it go, you've probably lost your opportunity if they had a hot start like Ja Morant did.
Right.
Well, if I can console you a bit, if you guys remember the beginning of last year, Ja did the exact same thing.
Right.
I think he came out, I think game 1 he came out 45 points, game 2 he came out 41 or something ridiculous. And I remember his select at the time was like $100 US. And within 7 days, it went to like 225 or something. And I was sitting there going, oh, I'm such an idiot. But it's come all the way back down, right? So if it's, the silver lining here is, don't do it, man. If you see that light blue tonight, don't do it. I think you can come back in, man. Like just wait till the lull this season. Right. Yeah.
All right, I'll try to hold off. It's always good to humble ourselves every now and then with this Dead Wrong segment. So we'll return to it, but not too soon.
Yeah, my confidence is low, man.
All right, let's go on then to our last segment of the episode, and it's called, of course, Pick One. This week, it's the Hot Takes edition of Pick One. So for those who are listening for the first time, each of us will present 2 hobby hot takes, and we all decide which one is likelier to happen. All right? So who wants to lead off this segment?
All right. I'll start us off. We'll go with, we're focusing on basketball and the Ball brothers. Both off to a hot start, Yeah. Lonzo Ball with a new team. I think, it's a way better fit in Chicago. They're 4-0 to start the season. So I'm going to say Lonzo Ball takes Chicago Bulls to the finals, to the NBA finals this year. Versus his younger brother, all right, the more touted LaMelo Ball takes Charlotte to the NBA finals. Who's your pick?
Nice.
So the finals this season or
this
finals
season? We're
season?
We're talking this season, yeah.
This season.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's the Hot Takes edition, so we're going hot takes all the way. I'm picking LaMelo, man. I think it's easy to pick Lonzo, but I'm gonna say this: Chicago has a whole bunch of now they're veterans, and these are all veterans that haven't really had any playoff success. Right? And we're expecting them all of a sudden to have this amazing chemistry and have amazing playoff success. I don't know. I don't completely buy it. And there's pressure. I think Chicago has pressure from the media to try and win. Like this is a team that's built to win. Charlotte, on the other hand, they're just playing free-flowing basketball. If you look at Miles Bridges, it looks like he's about to take a huge step forward. He's like dropping 30 a night. They have a bunch of players injured like Rozier and PJ Washington, and they have that new kid, James Bouknight. Like, I think they have zero pressure. They're playing fun basketball, and I think they could surprise. You know, like one team's got pressure and it's full of veterans that don't win, haven't proved they can win. And one team has a whole bunch of youngsters that have nothing to lose, have no, you know, there's no jury out on them whether they're winners or losers. So I'm gonna go all the way, man. I'm gonna say LaMelo is gonna take Charlotte to the finals.
All right.
I thought this was an easy one when you first presented it. Like, I was going LaMelo too. Like, LaMelo's a stud, right? Even in his second year. But then I believe in the Bulls, man. You know, like having. I guess that's the big difference between John's take and my take, right? Like, do we believe in the team
Right.
that
Around
they'll
him,
gel
pretty
together?
much.
Yeah, and you know, Lonzo looks like he's playing with confidence. Maybe this is the right setting, the right environment for him to really thrive. And so far, so good, right? Like this early in the season. So, and Lonzo's, you know, he's got talent too, right? Like he's kind of maybe a little bit overshadowed now because of his younger brother, LaMelo. Like,
Right.
yeah, I think Chicago's got a great shot to make it all the way, and I think Lonzo will be a key contributor to that success. So, for me, it's Lonzo.
Nice.
Fair.
Yeah, this was tough for me because, you know, like part of me wants LaMelo. Like but I actually see kind of him doing something stupid like that, right? Where, you know, kind of like similar to kind of like Tyler Hero, you know, in his first year as well, right? So, but yeah, I think for me it's more of Chicago and what they've done with that team. I think, and we'll see, because Chicago played Detroit twice and the Raptors once, and some other, I think the Pelicans. So that was their 4-0 schedule. So it's they haven't really been put to the test, but I do like what I see with Chicago, and I think more realistically on these hot takes, I'm gonna go with Lonzo and Chicago Bulls, because I do believe that they're an actual contender, right? Whereas I want to see LaMelo do it, but I think they're gonna do special things, even if they, you know, make playoffs and, you know, have a little run. But I just don't see it them getting deep into the playoffs. So I'm gonna say Chicago.
They might actually meet each other in the playoffs. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
that'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be cool. You know, even from a hobby standpoint, like if you want to make a good investment, Lonzo's probably your pick, right?
Exactly.
LaMelo
it's the same
is
thing. Yeah.
so high right now, but Lonzo you could get good deals for.
Yeah,
but then that's what I'm saying. LaMelo might be overpriced, but if he does something
crazy
stupid,
things,
you know, his price is
higher,
right, and that's when you kind of like take that flip, right? So
yeah, 100%. All right, good one. John, you got one?
Nice. Yeah. So I'm gonna put a Hobby Logic 1v1 hot take to the test. I'm gonna say pitchers in baseball will come back to strong hobby relevance, or defensemen in hockey will come back to strong hobby relevance.
Oh man, that is tough, man.
the D's.
D-men and pitchers, man, there's zero love for these guys.
Oh boy.
Which one's gonna make the comeback?
For me, this one's easy for me. You know, I honestly think there's a lot of value in pitchers as well. If you look back at like guys like Nolan Ryan, Sandy Koufax, like their values are still strong, and it's just harder for a pitcher to have that longevity in the career. But if you look at, you know, some of the pitchers that are still around, like Verlander, they've had tremendous careers where you look back and you're gonna be like, wow, like, you know, and that's why it's like the hobby's been so used to that kind of like pitchers get no love because you know, you don't know the longevity of their careers, the injury and stuff like that. But for me, I have zero interest in like hockey hockey defensemen, honestly. Other than a few years back when I was in fantasy hockey, I was like, who's my starting defenseman that's gonna stat the points, right? So for me, it's an easy one. I'm gonna go. Pitchers will come back. I think they're a great buy as well during this too, right? Some of them at least, right? So.
Isn't Sandy Koufax and Nolan Ryan the only pitchers that have strong hobby relevance?
Currently, right now, but we're still counting.
Hey, listen, Clayton Kershaw is up there too now.
Yeah, Kershaw. You guys got like Kershaw and stuff like that. But then if you go into like the Tiffany's, for instance, like the Topps Tiffany's of the older pitchers, I think there's a lot of they're not cheap as well, right?
Like Randy Johnson and.
Yeah, I don't know the values of them, like the Flair Glossies and stuff like that.
Right.
I think they get pretty rare, so.
Oh man, this is a good one because I go back and forth because I think about the game of baseball. Like even in the playoffs, if you notice, like how many teams have put out a bullpen game? You know what I mean? Like no pitcher had pitched more than 2 innings, and that seems to be a trend. And I don't know if that's going to stop. And starting pitchers going no more than 5 innings, 6 innings tops. So the relevance of pitchers seems to be decreasing, generally speaking. And then on the flip side, the defensemen, like they're becoming a little more offensively minded. Like I see a lot more defense in the future, scoring more goals. Like the Erik Karlsson types back in the day,
Right.
and Morgan Riley is a perfect example. You know what I mean? Like just on the offense, and they could pad their stats in the offensive categories. So I see the defense in hockey being a little bit more relevant in the game. But that being said, I think from a hobby standpoint, like if you ask a passive baseball card collector, they'll be able to name some top tier pitchers, right? And if you ask a hockey card collector, it might be a little bit more difficult to name like top tier defensemen, maybe like a handful,
Right.
So there will always still be starting pitchers. I don't think it'll go to a completely bullpen type game. I don't think MLB will allow it. They'll probably instate a rule before that ever happens. So I think there'll be starting pitchers that are still relevant, and I think there are a lot of pitchers that can do tremendous things. Like, it's always amazing to see a no-hitter or a perfect game.
Right.
Those will happen, and I'm sure there'll be pitchers that do shine in their careers that way. And for that reason, from a hobby standpoint, I think pitchers will become more relevant rather than defensemen.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think it's easy when I look at the hobby standpoint. It's more difficult when I just see it as a sports fan in general, looking at the trends of the game. But yeah, I'm going to go with pitchers as well.
Interesting. Just for some context, I'm not saying that there's no opportunity to make money. I think a lot of people made money investing in both defensemen and pitchers. But the question here is their strong hobby relevance. And truthfully, I don't know if I believe in either of these to come back, because this is just a hobby. Like, it's going to take some serious work for the hobby to turn and to say pitchers deserve just as much as any other player, or defensemen deserve just as much as forwards. But I like where you were going, Clark, with the game kind of changing for pitchers and the game changing for defensemen. For that reason, I'm going to go the other way, and I'm picking D-men in hockey. Of the two having a chance, when you look at some of the more recent hype in young defensemen, I think young defensemen are getting more notoriety to becoming like legitimately being like the centerpieces around builds. And you'll see that in card prices, right? You see it in like Quinn Hughes, you see it in Cale Makar. Like, these are like highly sought after hobby defensemen. It is sad to see like Erik Karlsson, one of the greatest offensive all time, like his Young Guns is trading for 170. I don't know what it's trading for, but I know it's like really, really low. But in terms of the future, I don't have too much hope for pitchers, to be honest. And I feel like there is a sliver of hope for D-men in hockey. So I'm going to go with D-men on this one.
Okay. I can see that argument too, so it's all good. But yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence either to tell you the truth. You might as well just put catchers in that
Yeah, that's true.
1v1.
Catchers and goalies.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Okay. I'll end the episode with my pick one pair. And the first one is Connor McDavid will reach GOAT status when his career is over, versus Patrick Mahomes, who we talked about earlier, will reach GOAT status when his career is over. And to put into context, if you had a few $1,000s hanging around, which would you rather invest in? They're both. I think we all believe they're both going to be great players, but who would you rather put your few $1,000s in that you hold long term and you could see making 5-6 figures potentially? Do you know what I mean? Who's that guy? Who's that GOAT that you're going to put your money on?
This one's really tough. At first, I was going to say Connor McDavid, to be honest, just because I feel like, I guess pricing could, but it's Upper Deck Young Guns again. Like, to me, it's like that's a kicker. I got so many options with Patrick Mahomes. Like, yeah. But for me, I think Patrick Mahomes has already done kind of like GOAT stuff. So for him to do it at such a young age, like we're talking only a select quarterbacks in the NFL, what he's accomplished already. And, the future is bright for him. So I think given that obviously both players stay healthy, I'm actually going to go Patrick Mahomes just because of, Connor McDavid doesn't have a cup, and, that's the question that always comes up, right? Is he going to stay healthy? Is he going to have a cup? What's the legacy? Is he going to leave behind? So right now, as of today, I'm going Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair if you put, apples to apples, no injuries. For me, I'm going to put that injury risk into play. I think the nature of football is just way too risky to know. Like, I think Mahomes has already, as crazy as it sounds, he could, if he ended his career today, he might have a shot at the Hall of Fame, which is pretty insane. So he's clearly on that path of becoming GOAT status, and that's why his cards have been going to the moon. But the nature of football really scares me, and that's the worry about Mahomes long term. We don't know what exactly could happen to him. So for that reason, it's McDavid. And McDavid, he's putting up Nintendo numbers like year in and year out. It's insane. Last year he had 105 points in 50 games or something ridiculous. And he's going to do it again this year. And he's going to do it again next year. And he's going to do it again for the next 10 to 15 years, right? So it's just a matter of if and when he wins the Stanley Cup. I think he can do it. Maybe he'll win multiple. Who knows? But even if he doesn't, I think he'll be like a Mike Trout. Like, I think he'll be among the conversation of the greatest. Maybe he won't win anything, but he's going to be up there, man. I think I mentioned it last week. We're watching a generational player. Like, we are watching LeBron on skates. Like, this is what you guys are watching. If you guys don't watch hockey, watch McDavid. You're watching greatness on the ice. So it's easy for me. It's McDavid.
Yeah, both fair points. Both good choices. I can't disagree with one or the other. I take your injury argument seriously too. Like, that's where I've been leaning towards McDavid because yeah, you're right. Like, football, you could get injured at any point, and he's already kind of been banged up already in this season.
Right.
And although Mahomes is great, like, Mahomes seems to be able to get out of sacks like he's a kind of a Nintendo type player too. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You're just dodging all these D guys. But you know what it comes down to for me is to reach GOAT status, you got to win. You got to win the grand prize. Fair. Mahomes has already done it. Mahomes has done it. I don't know if McDavid's going to. He's going to put up his own personal stats for sure, like you said. But I don't know if McDavid will win a cup. Like, I hope he does. But the fact that Mahomes has already won it, and I believe if Mahomes stays healthier longer, he has a chance to win a couple more. And I think for that reason, Mahomes is closer to being to reaching that GOAT status. Of course, my original 1v1 was Connor McDavid's going to be better than Wayne Gretzky and Patrick Mahomes is going to be better than Tom Brady.
Whoa. Why didn't we go there?
That's hot takes. Oh.
Yeah.
But isn't it semantics? Isn't that same question?
Yeah.
You know, to be the GOAT, you got to overtake those guys, right? So
yeah, it's true.
So I just wanted to hide that fact, just not persuade you into one choice or the other. But I'm gonna go with Mahomes too, because he's already won.
Yeah,
and he might win some more. All right, fun stuff, guys. I think right there's a good spot to end the show. Thank you to all our listeners. And if you enjoyed our podcast, we appreciate you leaving a positive feedback wherever you listen to your podcast. And we'd love to hear from you guys about any questions you might want us to dive into for any future episodes. You can reach us at Instagram at Cards to the Moon, all one word, or at 5cardguys, all one word as well. And you can also email us at hello@5cardguys.com. All right, thanks again all, and we'll see you next week. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU@Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.